They say money screams, but true wealth whispers. Bella Jenkins thought it was just another Tuesday shift at Manhattan's most exclusive restaurant. She needed the tips to save her little sister's life. But when Vanessa Sterling, a chaotic socialite with a diamond-encrusted ego, walked through the door, Bella's life didn't just get harder, it got destroyed. Vanessa thought humiliating a waitress was sport. She didn't know that the quiet old man sitting in the corner, nursing a cheap iced tea, wasn't just watching. He was judging, and he held the power to end Vanessa's entire world with a single phone call. Watch until the end, because the karma that hits this entitled brat isn't just satisfying, it's legendary. The air inside L'Olympe, New York City's most pretentiously expensive restaurant, smelled of truffle oil, aged cognac, and fear. Bella Jenkins adjusted the collar of her stiff white uniform. It was cutting into her neck, a constant reminder of the suffocating pressure she was under. She checked her reflection in the polished brass of the service station. Dark circles haunted her eyes, disguised poorly by drugstore concealer that didn't match her pale winter skin. "Table 4 is open, Bella," the floor manager, Pierre, hissed, snapping his fingers. Pierre was a man who believed kindness was a defect found only in the poor. "And fix your apron. You look like you've been wrestling a stray dog." "Yes, Pierre." "Sorry," Bella murmured, smoothing the fabric. She didn't have the energy to fight back. All she could think about was the invoice sitting on her kitchen counter in her tiny Queens apartment. St. Jude's Medical Center. Total due $12,400. It was just the co-pay for her younger sister, Lily's, kidney treatment. But to Bella, it might as well have been the national debt. Bella picked up her tray. It was heavy, solid silver, much like everything else in L'Olympe. The restaurant was the crown jewel of the culinary world, located on the 50th floor of the fictional but towering Sovereign building in Midtown. It was the kind of place where a bottle of water cost more than Bella's hourly wage. Tonight, the atmosphere was particularly tense. The gossip in the kitchen was that a VIP was coming. Not a movie star or a politician. They got those every night. This was old money, the kind of money that built railroads and owned senators. "Keep your head down," whispered Marco, the sous chef, as he plated a dish of foie gras that cost $250. "I heard the Sterling family is in the city. If they come in, don't breathe unless they give you permission." Bella nodded, her stomach twisting. She walked out onto the floor, the plush velvet carpet swallowing the sound of her sensible black shoes. The restaurant was dimly lit, illuminated by crystal chandeliers that looked like frozen fireworks. At the corner table, table 9, sat an elderly man. He was alone. This was unusual for L'Olympe, where people came to be seen. He wore a suit that was clean, but dated, a style from 20 years ago. He was reading a paperback book with a cracked spine. He had ordered nothing but a pot of Earl Grey tea and a small basket of bread. Bella felt a pang of sympathy. He looked like a grandfather waiting for a family that might never show up. She walked over to refill his water. "Is everything all right, sir? Can I get you anything else?" Bella asked, her voice genuine. She dropped the fancy server accent Pierre forced them to use. The old man looked up. His eyes were a piercing, icy blue, hidden behind thick spectacles. He smiled, and the wrinkles around his eyes deepened. "I'm quite all right, my dear. Just enjoying the view. It's changed a lot since I was last up here." "It is a beautiful view," Bella agreed, looking out the floor-to-ceiling windows at the sprawling Manhattan grid. "My sister loves the lights. She says they look like stars that fell to earth." "Your sister sounds like a poet," the man said softly. He glanced at her name tag. "Bella, a strong biblical name." "Are you working a double shift tonight, Bella?" "I am," she admitted, surprised he noticed. Medical bills don't pay themselves, unfortunately. The old man nodded slowly, dipping a piece of bread into his tea. No, they certainly do not. You're a good sister, Bella. Diligence is a virtue that is often rewarded. Bella! Pierre's voice cut through the air like a whip. He was standing by the host stand, glaring. Table 4. Now. Bella flinched. I have to go. Enjoy your tea, sir. She rushed toward the entrance, just as the heavy mahogany doors swung open. The energy in the room shifted instantly. Conversation stopped. Heads turned. Walking in was a trio of women who looked like they had been manufactured in a laboratory, dedicated to intimidating beauty. Leading them was a woman Bella recognized from the covers of tabloids and Instagram feeds everywhere, Vanessa Sterling. She was 23, blonde, and wearing a red Versace dress that probably cost more than Bella's entire education. Vanessa didn't walk. She prowled. On her arm was a Birkin bag made of albino crocodile skin. Following her were her 2 friends, more like minions, Jessica and Chloe, both scrolling on their phones, looking bored. Vanessa stopped at the host stand, looked at Pierre, and didn't say a word. She just raised an eyebrow. Ms. Sterling. Pierre practically melted into a puddle of obsequiousness. We weren't expecting you, but we are honored, truly honored. I didn't make a reservation because I didn't think I needed one, Vanessa said, her voice loud enough to carry across the room. I want the window seat, the private alcove. Pierre went pale. Ah, Ms. Sterling. Table 1? It is currently reserved for— I don't care who it's reserved for, unless it's the president. And even then, I'd expect him to move, Vanessa snapped, snapping her gum. Move them, now. Pierre scrambled. He looked around the room, panicked, and his eyes landed on Bella. He grabbed her arm, his grip bruising. Bella, set table 1 immediately. Clear whoever is there. Move them to the back. But Pierre, Bella whispered, the couple at table 1 is celebrating their 50th anniversary. They booked this 6 months ago. Do I look like I care about their anniversary? Pierre hissed, sweat beading on his forehead. That is Vanessa Sterling. Her father is currently buying the building across the street. If she isn't happy, we are all fired. Move them. Bella swallowed the lump of injustice in her throat. She had to do it. For Lily. She walked over to the elderly couple at table 1, apologizing profusely, and moved them to a smaller table near the kitchen doors. The shame burned her cheeks. Vanessa watched the whole thing with a smirk, not even saying thank you as she sat down in the freshly vacated seat. She tossed her crocodile bag onto the table, knocking over a salt shaker. Finally, Vanessa sighed, looking at her friends. Service in this city is going downhill. I had to wait nearly 30 seconds. Bella approached the table, her notepad ready. She took a deep breath. This was going to be a long night. Good evening, ladies, Bella said, forcing a smile that didn't reach her eyes. Welcome to L'Olympe. My name is Bella, and I'll be taking care of you tonight. Can I start you off with some— Sparkling water, Vanessa interrupted, not looking up from her phone. She was typing furiously. And not the domestic trash. I want the imported Voss, chilled to exactly 45 degrees, and bring a bucket of ice, but don't put the ice in the water. I hate when it dilutes the minerality. Of course, Bella said, writing it down. And for the others? Same, Vanessa answered for them. And bring us the wine list, the reserve list, not the one you give to tourists. Bella nodded and hurried away. Her hands were shaking slightly. She went to the bar. The bartender, an empathetic man named Tom, gave her a pitying look. Sterling table? Tom asked. Yeah. Good luck. Last time she was here, she made a waiter cry because his tie was too blue. Bella grabbed the water and the heavy leather-bound book that contained the rare vintages. She returned to the table. Vanessa and her friends were laughing loudly, taking selfies with the flash on, blinding the other diners. Bella carefully placed the water glasses down and began to pour. "Stop!" Vanessa shrieked. The entire restaurant went silent again. Bella froze, the bottle hovering over the glass. "What are you doing?" Vanessa looked at Bella as if she were a cockroach that had crawled onto the tablecloth. I was pouring your water, Miss Sterling," Bella stammered. "I said chilled," Vanessa hissed. She reached out and touched the bottle with one manicured finger. "This is room temperature. Do you think I'm an animal? Do you expect me to drink warm water like a peasant?" "I apologize," Bella said, her heart pounding. "I just took it from the cooler. It might have—" "I don't want excuses," Vanessa snapped. "I want competence. Take it away. And bring me a bottle of Domaine de la Romane Conti, 1990. Maybe if I'm drunk, I won't notice how incompetent the staff is." Bella felt tears pricking her eyes, but she blinked them back. She removed the water bottles. As she walked back toward the kitchen, she passed table 9. The old man in the dated suit was watching. He had put down his book. His expression was unreadable, but his gaze was fixed on Vanessa Sterling. Back in the kitchen, Pierre was hyperventilating. "She wants the DRC 90, Pierre squeaked. "That bottle is $25,000. "She asked for it," Bella said, leaning against the counter to catch her breath. "Well, bring it to her, and use the white gloves. Don't touch the bottle with your bare hands." Bella put on the white cotton gloves. She felt like a mime in a horror movie. She carried the dusty, incredibly expensive bottle of wine out to the floor. She presented the label to Vanessa. 1990 Romane Conti, Bella announced softly. Vanessa barely glanced at it. "Open it, and don't crumble the cork, or I'm sending it back." Bella carefully used the corkscrew. The cork was old and fragile. She worked with the precision of a surgeon. Pop, a perfect opening. She poured a small tasting amount into Vanessa's glass. Vanessa swirled it, sniffed it, and took a sip. She pursed her lips, swished it around, and then, to everyone's horror, she spat it back into the glass. "It's corked," Vanessa declared loudly. The sommelier, who had been hovering nearby, stepped forward, looking terrified. "Ms. Sterling, I assure you, that bottle has been temperature-controlled since— Are you calling me a liar?" Vanessa stood up, her chair scraping loudly against the floor. She towered over Bella. "It tastes like vinegar. It's spoiled, just like the service here." "Ms. Sterling," Bella said, her voice trembling but firm. "I can open another bottle, but—" "I don't want another bottle," Vanessa yelled. She picked up the glass of $25,000 wine. "I want to know why this place hires incompetent trash who serve garbage to paying customers." Then she looked Bella up and down. Her eyes landed on Bella's shoes. They were standard-issue non-slip shoes, slightly scuffed from months of double shifts. "Look at her," Vanessa laughed, turning to her friends. "Look at her shoes. They look like something you'd buy at a discount bin in a thrift store. My dog sleeps on better leather than that." Chloe and Jessica giggled. "Oh my God, V, you're so bad," Chloe tittered. "I'm just honest," Vanessa sneered. She turned back to Bella. "How much do they pay you here? $10 an hour? Do you even make enough to buy soap? Because you smell like stress and poverty." The cruelty was so unnecessary, so visceral, that Bella felt the wind knocked out of her. She thought of Lily, lying in a hospital bed, hooked up to dialysis. She thought of the nights she spent sleeping on the bus because she was too tired to walk home. "I work hard," Bella said, her voice quiet. "I'm just trying to do my job." "Well, you're failing," Vanessa said. She grabbed the open bottle of wine from the table. "Let me help you clean up your act." Before Bella could react, Vanessa tilted the bottle. Dark, red, sticky wine poured out. Not into a glass, but onto Bella. It splashed over her white uniform, soaking into the fabric instantly. It dripped down her apron, staining her white gloves, and pooled around her thrift store shoes. The restaurant went deathly silent. "Oops," Vanessa said, dropping the empty bottle onto the table with a thud. "My hand slipped. But honestly, that uniform looks better red. It hides the cheap fabric." Bella stood there, the cold wine soaking through to her skin. She was shaking. Not from cold, but from a humiliation so deep it felt like burning. She looked around. The other diners were staring, mouths open. Pierre was frozen in the corner, too cowardly to intervene. But then, a chair scraped against the floor. At table 9, the old man stood up. He didn't look like a fragile grandfather anymore. He stood up straight, his shoulders squared. He took off his glasses and placed them on the table next to his cheap paperback. He began to walk toward Vanessa's table. His steps were slow, measured, and terrifyingly silent. "Excuse me," the old man said. His voice wasn't loud, but it carried a strange, heavy authority that made the air vibrate. Vanessa turned around, flipping her hair. She looked the old man up and down, taking in his dated suit and scuffed shoes. She laughed. "Who are you?" she asked, a cruel smirk playing on her lips. "The janitor? Did you come to mop up the mess?" The old man didn't blink. "I suggest you apologize to this young woman. Immediately." Vanessa's eyes widened. She looked at her friends, then burst into laughter. "Apologize? To her? And who are you to tell me what to do? Do you know who I am?" "I know exactly who you are," the old man said. "The question is, Vanessa, do you have any idea who I am?" Vanessa Sterling stared at the old man, her mouth twisting into a grin of pure incredulity. The silence in the restaurant was heavy, the kind of silence that precedes a natural disaster. "Do I have any idea who you are?" Vanessa repeated, her voice shrill with amusement. She turned to her minions, Chloe and Jessica. "Did you hear that? Grandpa here thinks he's famous. What are you? A retired Walmart greeter? Did you invent the dust bunny?" The girls cackled, the sound grating and cruel. The old man stood his ground. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't clench his fists. He simply adjusted his cuff. "I am giving you one chance, young lady. Apologize to Bella. Clean up the mess you made. And perhaps, just perhaps, you will be allowed to finish your meal." Vanessa's laughter died abruptly. Her eyes narrowed into slits. She wasn't used to being told no, let alone being threatened. "Listen to me, you senile old bat," Vanessa spat, stepping closer, invading his personal space. "My father is Richard Sterling. He owns Sterling Industries. He made $3 billion last quarter. He could buy this building, burn it down, and build a parking lot on top of it, just for fun. And you? You're wearing a suit that smells like mothballs. You are nothing." She turned to the manager, Pierre, who was currently shaking like a leaf in a hurricane. "Pierre!" Vanessa screamed. "Why is this riffraff still breathing my air? Get him out of here, and get this wet dog of a waitress out of my sight too. She's ruining my appetite." Pierre snapped into action, driven by the terror of losing his job. He rushed forward, positioning himself between Vanessa and the old man. He turned his back on the old man, facing him with a sneer that he reserved for people he deemed unimportant. "Sir," Pierre said, his voice dripping with faux politeness, "I'm going to have to ask you to leave. You are disturbing our VIP guests." Bella, despite being soaked in sticky wine and shivering, stepped forward. "Pierre, no! He didn't do anything. He was just defending me." "Shut up, Bella," Pierre snapped. "You're fired. Get your things and get out. And you," He pointed a trembling finger at the old man. "Leave now, or I am calling security. We don't allow harassment in Lolamp." The injustice was physically painful. Bella felt a sob choke her throat. She looked at the old man, this kind stranger who had tried to help her, and felt a wave of guilt. She had cost him his dinner. She had caused a scene. "Please, sir," Bella whispered to the old man, touching his arm gently. Her hand came away wet with the wine that had splattered onto him. "Just go. It's not worth it. She wins. People like her. They always win." The old man looked down at Bella. His expression softened, the ice in his blue eyes melting into a pool of sorrow. "They win because good men do nothing, Bella, and I am tired of doing nothing." He gently removed Bella's hand from his arm. Then he looked at Pierre. "You are firing this young woman?" the old man asked. "Because she was assaulted by a customer? I am firing her because she is incompetent and attracts trouble." Pierre lied, desperate to please Vanessa. "Now get out." "Very well," the old man said. He reached into the inside pocket of his jacket. "He's got a gun!" Chloe shrieked, diving under the table. But the old man didn't pull out a weapon. He pulled out a phone. It wasn't the latest iPhone. It wasn't a gold-plated smartphone. It was an ancient black BlackBerry, the kind that hadn't been sold in stores for a decade. Vanessa laughed again, relaxing. "Oh my God, look at that brick. Does that thing even have the internet? Who are you calling? The 1800s? The old man ignored her. He flipped the phone open with a practiced thumb and dialed a number from memory. He didn't look at the screen. He held the phone to his ear and waited. 1 ring. 2 rings. "Richard," the old man said into the phone. Vanessa froze. Her father's name was Richard, but surely there were millions of Richards. "Yes," the old man continued, his voice calm, conversational. "I'm in New York. I decided to stop by Lolamp for a quiet dinner. I wanted to see how the new management was doing." He paused, listening. "No, Richard, the dinner is not going well," the old man said, his eyes locking onto Vanessa's face. "I have run into a bit of a pest problem. A young woman, blonde, wearing a red dress that is far too tight. She claims to be your daughter." Vanessa's face went white. The blood drained from her cheeks so fast it looked like she might faint. "Yes," the old man said. "She is currently demanding that the manager throw me out. She also just poured a $25,000 bottle of wine on a member of the staff. She says you made $3 billion last quarter. Is that accurate, Richard?" The room was dead silent. Even the chefs in the kitchen had stopped cooking to listen. "I see," the old man said. "Well, Richard, I think you need to speak to her. She seems to be under the impression that she owns the place. I think it's time we corrected that misunderstanding. I'm putting her on speaker." The old man held the ancient phone out toward Vanessa. His hand was steady as a rock. Vanessa stared at the phone like it was a bomb. Her hands shook as she reached for it. She didn't want to take it, but the look in the old man's eyes gave her no choice. Daddy?" she whispered into the speakerphone. The voice that roared out of the tiny speaker was so loud it distorted the audio. It was the voice of Richard Sterling, a man known for his temper. But currently, he sounded terrified. "Vanessa, are you out of your mind?" Richard screamed. "Do you know who you are talking to?" "It's just some old guy, Daddy," Vanessa cried, tears of panic forming. "Shut up!" Richard bellowed. "That is not some old guy. That is Elias Thorne. He is the chairman of the board, Vanessa. He owns the bank that holds my loans. He owns the land your apartment is built on. He owns the sovereign building you are standing in right now, Bella gasped. She covered her mouth with her hand. Elias Thorne. The name was legendary. He was the ghost of Wall Street, a recluse billionaire who hadn't been photographed in public for 15 years. He was the majority shareholder of the conglomerate that owned L'Olympe, the hotel, and half of the skyline. Vanessa had just poured wine on and insulted her father's boss's boss. "Put him back on the phone," Richard screamed. "Now!" Vanessa handed the phone back to Elias, her hands trembling so violently she almost dropped it. Elias put the phone back to his ear. "Richard, your daughter has ruined my suit. She has ruined the carpet, and she has ruined this young waitress's uniform." He listened for a moment. "No, Richard. An apology won't be enough," Elias said coldly. "We are reviewing the lease for Sterling Industries next week, aren't we? I think I might have to reconsider the terms. I don't like doing business with families who lack discipline." "Please, Elias!" Richard's voice was tinny and desperate. "I'll handle it. I'll cut her off. Just don't pull the financing." "We shall see," Elias said. "Goodbye, Richard." He snapped the phone shut. The sound echoed like a gunshot. For 10 seconds, nobody moved. Vanessa looked like she had been slapped. Her arrogance had evaporated, replaced by raw, unadulterated fear. She knew what her father was like when he lost money, and she had just cost him potentially billions. Pierre, the manager, was hyperventilating. He looked from Elias to Vanessa to Bella, realizing he had bet on the wrong horse. He had just fired a waitress for being assaulted by the owner of the building. Elias Thorne slowly took a handkerchief from his pocket and wiped a spot of wine from his lapel. He looked at Pierre. "You," Elias said. Pierre jumped. Yes, Mr. Thorne." "Sir, I am so sorry. I had no idea. If I had known it was you, if you had known it was me, you would have treated me with respect," Elias said, his voice low and dangerous. "But because you thought I was a nobody, you treated me like garbage. That tells me everything I need to know about your character." Elias walked over to the table where Vanessa was still standing, trembling. He picked up the menu. "Vanessa," Elias said. I'm sorry," Vanessa squeaked. "I didn't know." "It doesn't matter that you didn't know who I was," Elias said, leaning in close. "What matters is that you treated Bella like she wasn't a human being. You think money makes you better than her? Let me tell you something about money, my dear. I have more money in my couch cushions than your father has in his entire portfolio. But I have never, in my 80 years, treated a server the way you just did." He turned to the stunned room. "Everyone listen to me." The diners, the staff, everyone turned to him. "This restaurant is now closed for the evening," Elias announced, "except for table 9 and the staff. Everyone else, please leave. Your meals are on the house." He looked at Vanessa. "Not you. You stay." Vanessa's friends, Chloe and Jessica, grabbed their purses. "We're leaving," Jessica said. "No," Elias said, pointing a finger. "You laughed. You stay too." Terrified, the two friends sat back down. Elias turned to Bella. "Bella, my dear, I believe you were just fired." Bella nodded, wiping tears from her eyes. "Yes, sir." "Good," Elias said. "Because I don't want you working for this idiot Pierre anyway." He turned to Pierre. "Pierre, give me your keys." "Sir?" Pierre stammered. "Your keys to the restaurant, and your badge. You are relieved of your command, effective immediately. You are banned from all Thorne properties. If I see you in this building again, I will have you arrested for trespassing." Pierre started to cry. "But my pension. I've been here 10 years. "And in 10 years, you learned nothing about hospitality," Elias said. "Get out." Pierre placed his keys on the table with a shaking hand and walked out the door, head hung low, his career over in an instant. Elias turned back to Bella. "Bella, do you know how to run a floor?" I've been a head waitress for 5 years, sir," Bella said softly. "Excellent. Tonight, you are the manager. And as the manager, you have a very difficult table to deal with." Elias gestured to Vanessa and her friends. They made a mess, a terrible mess. Wine everywhere. Broken glass. Elias smiled, but it wasn't a nice smile. It was the smile of a shark. "Vanessa," Elias said, "I made a deal with your father. I told him I wouldn't pull his financing if he agreed to my punishment. He agreed instantly." Vanessa looked up, mascara running down her face. What punishment?" Elias pointed to the utility closet in the corner of the room. "There is a mop, a bucket, and a bottle of bleach in that closet," Elias said. "Bella's uniform is ruined. The carpet is stained. You are going to clean it up." "What?" Vanessa gasped. I can't clean. I'm wearing a Versace dress." "Then take it off and clean in your slip," Elias said, his voice turning into a roar. "I don't care. You will scrub this floor on your hands and knees until Bella is satisfied that it is spotless. And your friends, they will help you." "I'm not doing that," Chloe yelled, standing up. "Then I will ensure that your father, Mr. Henderson, loses his contract with the city for the new stadium," Elias said calmly. "I know who your parents are too, girls. Don't think you are anonymous." Chloe sat down hard. "Now," Elias said, sitting back down at his table and picking up his tea. "Get to work. Bella, if they miss a spot, let me know." Bella stood there, stunned. She looked at the mop bucket. She looked at Vanessa Sterling, the girl who had tormented her moments ago, now looking at her with terrified eyes. Bella walked over to the closet. She opened the door and took out the mop and bucket. She filled it with water. She walked back to the table and placed the mop in front of Vanessa. "The water is warm," Bella said quietly. "Just how you like it." Vanessa stared at the mop handle. It was dirty, grey plastic. She looked at Elias. He was reading his book again, ignoring her. She looked at her phone. It was blowing up with texts from her dad. "Do whatever he says, or you are cut off from the trust fund." With a trembling hand, Vanessa Sterling, the billionaire heiress, reached out and grabbed the mop. But the story wasn't over. Elias had one more lesson to teach, and it involved something far more valuable than money. "Wait," Elias said, looking up from his book just as Vanessa dipped the mop into the water. Vanessa paused, hope flaring in her eyes. "Yes? You changed your mind?" "No," Elias said. "I just remembered something. Bella mentioned her sister. Lily, wasn't it?" Bella nodded. "Yes, sir." "And you mentioned bills," Elias said. "Bella, bring me the wine list, the one Vanessa was so rude about." Bella fetched the heavy leather book. Elias opened it to the page with the Domaine de la Romane Conti. $25,000, Elias mused. "Vanessa, you wasted a bottle. That means you bought it. That is the policy." I can pay for it," Vanessa stammered. "I have my black card." "Oh, you will pay for it," Elias said. "But you won't pay the restaurant. You will write a check right now to St. Jude's Medical Center, in Bella's sister's name. And since you wasted the wine, and time is money, let's make it $50,000 for the inconvenience." Vanessa's jaw dropped. $50,000? "Write the check," Elias commanded, "or start scrubbing. Actually, do both." Bella felt her knees go weak. $50,000. That would cover the co-pay. That would cover the next 3 treatments. That would save Lily. She looked at Elias, tears streaming down her face. "Sir, you don't have to." "I'm not doing it," Elias said, winking at her. Vanessa is. She's feeling very charitable tonight. Aren't you, Vanessa? Vanessa glared at him, hatred burning in her eyes. But she reached into her purse and pulled out her checkbook. But as Vanessa bent down to scrub the wine out of the carpet, her diamond bracelet snagged on the fabric. In her frustration, she yanked it. The clasp broke. Diamonds scattered across the floor, rolling under tables, disappearing into the dark corners of the restaurant. "My bracelet!" Vanessa screamed. "It's worth $100,000! She scrambled on the floor, desperate, her hands in the wine puddle, hunting for the gems. Elias watched her, a sad look on his face. "Look at her," he said to Bella. "She cares more about those cold stones than the person standing in front of her." Then the kitchen doors opened. A man walked out. He wasn't a waiter. He wasn't a cook. He was wearing a suit, but he looked like a bodyguard. He walked straight to Elias and whispered something in his ear. Elias's face went grim. He stood up abruptly. "Bella," he said, "come with me. Leave them to clean." "Where are we going?" Bella asked. "There is something you need to see," Elias said. "Something about your sister." Bella's heart stopped. "Is she okay? Did something happen?" "She's fine," Elias said, but his voice was serious. "But there is a secret about your family, Bella. A secret your parents never told you, and tonight it changes everything." The ride down the private elevator of the Sovereign building was silent. Bella stood next to Elias Thorne, her mind racing. She was still wearing her wine-stained uniform, sticky and uncomfortable, but the adrenaline coursing through her veins made her numb to the cold. When the doors opened, they didn't lead to the lobby. They opened into a private garage where a sleek, black Rolls-Royce Phantom was waiting, its engine purring like a resting jungle cat. "Get in," Elias said gently, gesturing to the open door held by a chauffeur. "Mr. Thorne," Bella stammered, hesitating, "I really need to get to the hospital. My sister, if you know something about her, please just tell me." "We are going to the hospital," Elias assured her. "But we need to talk on the way. It is a conversation that has been overdue for 40 years. Bella slid into the car. The interior smelled of rich leather and cedarwood. Elias sat opposite her. He pressed a button, and a partition rose, separating them from the driver. "Bella," Elias began, his voice heavy with age and regret. "You believe your family has always been poor, don't you? You believe your father was a mechanic, and your grandfather was a struggling clockmaker." "Yes," Bella said. "My grandfather died penniless. We lost the house when I was 10. "Your grandfather," Elias said, pulling a faded photograph from his jacket pocket, "was Arthur Jenkins. And he was not just a clockmaker. He was the brilliant mind behind the technology that runs Sterling Industries." Bella stared at him. "What? Sterling Industries?" "Vanessa's father's company." "It wasn't always their company," Elias sighed. He handed her the photo. It showed 2 young men standing in front of a small garage. One was a young Elias Thorne. The other, smiling broadly with grease on his cheek, was Bella's grandfather. "Arthur and I started a company in the 70s, Elias explained. "We were innovators. Arthur designed a microprocessing unit for industrial machinery. It was revolutionary. We were going to change the world, but we needed capital. So we brought in a silent partner, a man with money and connections." "Richard Sterling?" Bella guessed. "His father," Elias corrected. "Lawrence Sterling, a shark in a human suit. Lawrence saw the potential of Arthur's invention. He knew it was worth billions, but he didn't want to share. He wanted it all." Elias looked out the window at the passing city lights. "Lawrence manipulated the contracts. He buried us in legal loopholes. Then he accused Arthur of corporate espionage. stealing his own invention. He tied Arthur up in court for years until your grandfather was bankrupt. Lawrence took the patent, rebranded the company, and built the Sterling Empire on the foundation of your grandfather's genius. Bella felt sick. The injustice of it sat in her stomach like a stone. So, Vanessa's money, the dress she was wearing, the wine she poured on me. It's all blood money, Elias said grimly. Every cent of the Sterling fortune belongs to the Jenkins family. Your family. And you? Bella asked, looking at him with betrayal in her eyes. Where were you? I was a coward, Elias admitted, his voice cracking. Lawrence threatened me. He told me if I sided with Arthur, he would destroy me too. I took a buyout. I took a check for $1 million and walked away. I used that money to build my own empire, but I did it alone. I watched your grandfather lose everything. I watched your father struggle. I watched you work yourself to the bone. Why now? Bella whispered, tears streaming down her face. Why help me now? Because I am dying, Bella, Elias said softly. The confession hung in the air. I have stage 4 pancreatic cancer, Elias revealed. I have maybe 3 months left. When a man faces his creator, he starts to look at the ledger of his life. I have billions of dollars, but my soul is in the red. I cannot die knowing that Arthur's granddaughters are suffering, while that thief's granddaughter treats people like dirt. He reached into a briefcase next to him and pulled out a thick file. This, Elias said, tapping the folder, is the original patent and the original partnership agreement. I found it in my archives last week. It proves that Lawrence Sterling committed fraud. It proves that 50% of Sterling Industries belongs to the Jenkins estate. Bella's hands shook as she touched the folder. 50%? That's billions, Elias said. You aren't just a waitress, Bella. You are the heir to one of the largest fortunes in America, and I am going to help you take it back. The car slowed to a stop. They had arrived at St. Jude's Medical Center. But first, Elias said, his eyes hardening, we have a war to fight. Richard Sterling knows I'm involved now. He will not give up his empire easily. He will come for you. He will come for your sister. Let him come, Bella said, a newfound fire igniting in her chest. She thought of Vanessa laughing at her shoes. She thought of her father's calloused hands. I'm ready. The pediatric ICU was quiet, save for the rhythmic beeping of monitors. Bella rushed to room 402, pushing open the door. Lily was asleep. She looked so small in the hospital bed, her skin pale and translucent. She was only 12. The dialysis machine hummed beside her, acting as the kidney her body was failing to provide. Bella stroked Lily's hair. I'm here, Lil, and everything is going to change. I promise. Elias stood in the doorway, watching respectfully. I have arranged for the best specialists from Switzerland to fly in tomorrow, he said, and I've already transferred the funds to cover her transplant. She will not wait on the donor list. We will find a match privately. Bella turned to thank him, but before she could speak, the room door swung open with a violent bang. 2 men in dark suits walked in. They didn't look like doctors. They looked like lawyers who specialized in destroying lives. Behind them walked Richard Sterling. He was a tall man, impeccable in a charcoal suit, but his face was red with suppressed rage. He looked just like Vanessa, but where Vanessa was petty, Richard was predatory. So, Richard sneered, his eyes darting from Elias to Bella. This is the little charity case causing all the trouble. Get out, Elias said, his voice low. You have no business in this hospital room. I have business wherever I say I have business, Richard snapped. He looked at Bella. You think you're clever? You think because you got my daughter to cry and write a check that you've won?" He reached into his pocket and pulled out a piece of paper, the check Vanessa had written for $50,000. He ripped it into shreds and let the confetti fall onto the hospital floor. "Stopped payment," Richard smiled cruelly. "And I've just spoken to the hospital board. I'm a major donor, you see. I told them that if they accept any payments from Elias Thorne on behalf of this patient, I will pull my funding for the entire new cancer wing. Millions of dollars lost just to save one sick little girl." Bella gasped. "You can't do that! That's murder!" "It's business," Richard said coldly. "You embarrassed my daughter. You embarrassed me. Nobody humiliates a Sterling." He stepped closer to Bella, towering over her. "Here is the deal. You will sign a non-disclosure agreement stating that the incident at the restaurant never happened. You will publicly apologize to Vanessa for poor service, and you will disappear from New York. If you do that, maybe I'll let the hospital treat your sister." "You monster!" Bella spat. "I'm a father protecting his reputation," Richard said. Then he turned to Elias. "And you, old man, you're washed up. You think a dusty old patent from 40 years ago scares me. My lawyers will bury that so deep in litigation that by the time it sees a courtroom, you'll be dead, and this girl will be living in a box." Elias didn't flinch. He stepped forward, placing himself between Richard and Bella. "You are right, Richard," Elias said calmly. "I will be dead soon, which means I have nothing left to lose. And a man with nothing to lose is the most dangerous enemy you can have." Elias pulled out his phone, the old BlackBerry. "What are you going to do? Call my dad?" "He's dead," Richard scoffed. "No," Elias said. "I'm calling the press." He pressed a button. "I have a contact at the New York Times. He's been trying to get an interview with me for 15 years. I never gave it to him. But tonight, I'm offering him the exclusive of the century, the story of how the Sterling Empire was built on theft. And I'm giving him the video footage from the restaurant security cameras, the ones that show your daughter assaulting a waitress." Richard's face went pale. "You wouldn't?" "And," Elias continued, his voice rising, "I'm going to tell them that Richard Sterling is currently in a pediatric ICU, threatening to let a 12-year-old girl die of kidney failure because of a grudge. The public loves a villain, Richard, but they hate a child killer." Richard clenched his jaw so hard Bella thought his teeth might shatter. He knew the power of the media. A scandal like that wouldn't just hurt his stock price, it would destroy his brand. "You're bluffing," Richard hissed. "Try me," Elias challenged. For a long, tense moment, the two titans stared each other down. The air crackled with hostility. Bella held Lily's hand tight, praying. Finally, Richard stepped back. He smoothed his suit jacket, regaining his composure. "Fine," Richard said. "You want a war? You've got one. But don't think this is over. I have judges in my pocket. I have senators on speed dial. You might win the news cycle, Thorne, but I will win the war. You'll be dead in 3 months. And then—" He looked at Bella with a smile that sent shivers down her spine. "Then she will be all alone." Richard turned and stormed out of the room, his lawyers trailing behind him like shadows. Bella let out a breath she didn't know she was holding. Her legs gave out, and she sank into the chair beside Lily's bed. "He's right," Bella whispered, terrified. You're not going to be here forever. What do I do when you're gone? I don't know how to fight people like him." Elias placed a hand on her shoulder. His grip was surprisingly strong. "Then you have 3 months to learn," Elias said sternly. "I am not just going to give you money, Bella. I am going to teach you. I am going to teach you how to wield power, how to negotiate, how to destroy your enemies without raising your voice. By the time I die, you won't be a waitress anymore." He looked at the sleeping Lily, then back at Bella. "You will be a shark, and the Sterlings won't know what hit them." Elias walked to the window, looking out at the city skyline. "Get some rest, Bella. Tomorrow, your training begins. And the first lesson is simple. Never let them see you bleed." But unbeknownst to them, the war had already escalated. Across town, in the penthouse of the Sterling Plaza, Vanessa was sitting on her velvet sofa, her eyes red from crying, scrolling through social media. She saw a post from a busboy at Lolompe. He had secretly filmed her scrubbing the floor. The video was viral, millions of views, comments calling her trash, brat, and deserved it. She screamed and threw her phone at the wall, shattering the screen. "They think this is funny?" Vanessa whispered, her voice trembling with psychosis. "They think they can humiliate me?" She walked over to her desk. She unlocked a drawer and pulled out a small, silver flash drive. It was something she had stolen from her father's safe years ago. Insurance, he had called it. Dirt on everyone in New York, including Elias Thorne. "You want to play games, Grandpa?" Vanessa smiled, and it was a look of pure evil. "Let's play." 3 months later. The funeral of Elias Thorne was a quiet affair, attended by only a few close friends and the staff of Lolompo who had loved him. It was raining, a grey wash over New York City that matched the ache in Bella's chest. Standing under a black umbrella, Bella Jenkins looked different. The dark circles under her eyes were gone. Her posture was erect, steel-spined. She wore a tailored black coat that cost more than her old apartment. Beside her stood Lily, looking healthy and rosy-cheeked, her transplant a complete success. "Are you ready?" Lily asked, squeezing Bella's hand. Bella looked at her sister and smiled, a smile that didn't reach her eyes, but burned with determination. "I'm ready." Today was the day, the annual shareholders' meeting of Sterling Industries. With Elias gone, Richard Sterling believed he had won. He believed the lawsuit would die with the old man. He believed Bella was just a grieving girl with no resources. He was wrong. The Sterling Industries boardroom was a cavern of glass and mahogany. Richard sat at the head of the table, looking triumphant. Vanessa sat to his right, scrolling on her phone, looking bored but smug. "Gentlemen," Richard addressed the board members. "With the unfortunate passing of Elias Thorne, the hostile takeover attempt has been neutralized. We can now proceed with the acquisition of the Midtown block." "Not so fast," a voice rang out. The double doors swung open. Bella Jenkins walked in. She wasn't wearing a waitress uniform. She was wearing a crimson power suit, the same shade of red as the dress Vanessa had worn that night at the restaurant. She didn't walk, she glided, flanked by a team of 5 lawyers and 2 forensic accountants. "Who let her in?" Richard stood up, furious. "Security." "Sit down, Richard," Bella said. Her voice wasn't loud, but it silenced the room. It was Elias's voice coming from her throat. "I am here representing the Thorne estate. As the sole beneficiary of Elias Thorne's will, I now control his 15% stake in this company. Add that to the 50% stake my grandfather, Arthur Jenkins, was defrauded of, and I believe that makes me the majority shareholder." The board members gasped. "You have no proof of that fraud," Richard shouted, sweat beading on his lip. "That is a fairy tale." "Actually," Vanessa piped up, standing. She had a wicked grin on her face. "She's right, Daddy. She doesn't have proof. But I have proof of something else." Richard looked at his daughter, confused. "Vanessa, sit down." "No," Vanessa said. She held up the silver flash drive she had stolen from her father's safe months ago. She turned to Bella. "You think you're smart?" Grandpa Elias had secrets too, dirty secrets, and I'm going to play them for the whole world. Vanessa plugged the drive into the boardroom's presentation laptop. Say goodbye to your reputation, Bella. This drive proves Elias embezzled funds to pay for your sister's surgery. Bella didn't flinch. She just watched Vanessa with a look of pity. Vanessa, Bella said softly, do you really think Elias didn't know you stole that? Shut up! Vanessa hit the play button. The giant screen behind Richard flickered to life. But it wasn't a spreadsheet of embezzled funds. It wasn't a scandalous video of Elias. It was a video of Richard and Vanessa. It was dated 3 months ago. The camera angle was low, recorded from a hidden device, perhaps a phone left on a table. It was the night at the hospital. Video Richard. I told the hospital board, if they accept any payments, I will pull my funding. Millions lost just to save one sick little girl. Video Richard. Nobody humiliates a sterling. I have judges in my pocket. The boardroom went deathly silent. The board members stared in horror. Richard Sterling, on camera, admitting to bribery, blackmail, and threatening the life of a child. But the video didn't end there. It cut to a new clip. This one was decades old. Grainy footage of a younger Richard Sterling arguing with his father, Lawrence. Video Lawrence. We stole the patent, Richard. If Arthur Jenkins ever finds out we forged his signature, we go to jail. Video Richard. He won't find out. He's a nobody. We bury him. Vanessa gasped, backing away from the screen. No, that's not... I grabbed the wrong file. You grabbed exactly what Elias wanted you to grab, Bella said, stepping forward. He knew you were snooping. He planted that drive in the safe years ago, waiting for the day a Sterling would be arrogant enough to try and use it. Bella turned to the board. Gentlemen, Bella said, you have just witnessed undeniable proof of fraud, embezzlement, and criminal negligence. The Jenkins family is reclaiming its legacy. She looked at Richard, who had collapsed into his chair, defeated. Richard Sterling, Bella said, you are fired. You can't, Richard whispered. I just did, Bella said. Security is waiting to escort you out. The police are waiting in the lobby to discuss the bribery charges. She turned to Vanessa. Vanessa was shaking, tears streaming down her face, ruining her makeup. Bella, please. I didn't know. I'm family. You can't leave me with nothing. Bella looked at the girl who had poured wine on her, the girl who had mocked her shoes, the girl who had tried to let her sister die. You're right, Bella said coldly. I won't leave you with nothing. She reached into her purse and pulled out a crumpled piece of paper. It was a job application. I own Lolomp now, Bella said, and we are short-staffed. We need a dishwasher, minimum wage, no tips. She dropped the application at Vanessa's feet. Start at the bottom, Vanessa. Learn what it means to earn $1. If you work hard, maybe in 5 years, I'll let you serve water. Bella turned her back on them and looked out the window at the city skyline. Somewhere she knew Elias was watching, and somewhere her grandfather Arthur was smiling. The lioness had roared, and the jungle was finally quiet. The fall of the Sterling family was swift and brutal. Richard was sentenced to 10 years in prison for fraud and bribery. His assets were seized to pay back the Jenkins estate. Bella Jenkins didn't just take the money and run. She established the Thorne Jenkins Foundation, a charity dedicated to paying medical bills for families who couldn't afford life-saving treatments. She ensured that no sister would ever have to cry over an invoice again. As for Vanessa, if you go to Lolomp today, you might see her. She's the one in the back, wearing oversized rubber gloves, scrubbing grease off the pots. She doesn't wear Versace anymore. She wears a white uniform, stained with soap and hard work. She doesn't speak much, but every now and then, when a rude customer snaps their fingers at a waiter, Vanessa flinches. She finally understands the weight of the silver tray. Karma doesn't always come quickly, but when it comes, it pays in full. What an incredible journey from the restaurant floor to the boardroom. Bella proved that true class isn't about what you wear, but how you treat others. If you loved this story of justice and sweet revenge, please hit the like button. It helps us create more stories for you. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications. If you were Bella, would you have given Vanessa a job, or would you have left her on the street? Let us know below. Thanks for watching.